What's up, everybody? Welcome to Blood and Breakthrough. And today we've got Mr. Jeff Kyle, who's a Marine Corps veteran of 8 years and 6 infantry, 2 recon, and you got the Navy Achievement Medal. Now, also on top of all that, he's actually the famous American sniper Chris Kyle's brother. So, how you doing today, Mr. Jeff?
I'm good. How are y'all?
Pretty good, man. Pretty good.
Thanks so much for coming on. It's been a long time since we've seen each other. What, like 8, 9 years?
At least.
It's been a
Yeah.
while. We've got a lot to unpack, so we'll just dive right in. Are you ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So, just to start off with, so most people have seen the movie American Sniper now. You know, with movies, they tend to exaggerate some things, and some things they might kind of tell fibs here and there. You know what I mean? So we were kind of wondering, man. I had a couple people ask, how accurate is the movie compared to the way it was in real life?
Of course, Hollywood does what Hollywood does. About the only accurate thing about that movie was how they portrayed Chris. Everything else was pretty much just, they took their will to do whatever they wanted to kind of make it how they wanted.
Yeah, yeah. That's kind of what I figured, man. I figured there was a couple things that they did different and whatnot. So I guess you got to meet Bradley Cooper and all that. How did that go? Was he pretty down to earth guy? I mean,
He seemed to be. Again, he's an actor. He's basically a salesman. So he'll act how he deems necessary to get you to bite off on something. He was a good guy. We stayed in touch with him for a little while, but Clint Eastwood was there. Uh, he was always on the phone, so we didn't really get to talk to him a whole lot. But that was still
man,
pretty cool to be in the presence of Clint Eastwood. But yeah, it was okay. It was my dad kind of leaned across the table and told him, I know you're gonna do this with or without our consent, but if you don't portray my son correctly, then there's not a hole deep enough or a rock big enough that you can hide under in this world. So I guess they took note of that, and they did Chris a fair shake on that.
yeah, yeah.
So, how did you feel about the actor that portrayed you? Because I feel like they did a really bad. What's that?
Yeah, yeah. I was told that they hadn't picked the actors yet who were gonna portray everybody else in the movie, but I was assured that whoever they picked, they would reach out to us and kind of get the feel for who we are and how we act and everything like that. That never happened. So I was extremely disappointed in how they portrayed pretty much everybody else outside of Chris. They didn't do anybody else justice in the movie, which it's not about us. It was about Chris, but they still didn't do their due diligence to portray us in the right light. I felt like.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So, like the whole tarmac scene, like that. Can you walk us through that? Did that actually happen, or was that just complete Hollywood
No,
BS?
no, that was 100% Hollywood. Me and Chris never saw each other in country. I never acted like that in country. Um, we talked, we crossed paths. We basically crossed each other in the air one time when I was going over and he was coming back. So we were never in country at the same time and definitely never saw each other.
That's crazy because just watching the movie, I was like, oh my gosh, like my heart just like broke, and it sucks that whole thing was just fake. That they made you look like
Yeah,
you were
yeah.
losing it. So, man, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So another thing that the movie portrayed was pretty much you getting bullied as a child. Was that really happening?
No, no. The only person that bullied me as a child was Chris. Just being the bigger brother. That
Brother.
was, yeah, yeah, yeah. He wouldn't allow anything like that to happen anyways, and he kind of set me up to, I guess, defend myself. Funny story, at our high school, it was tradition that the outgoing seniors kind of did something to the incoming freshmen. And that was the case for me and Chris. He had already graduated when I came up as a freshman. And in our little commons area in the school, we had a big statue of a panther that was our mascot. And it was tradition that the seniors made the freshmen ride the panther. Well, he came back from college and held up two crisp $50 bills first day of my freshman year in front of everybody and said, anybody that can put my brother on the Panther today gets $100. For the rest of the year, it's 50. So I basically fought my freshman year through high school and never rode the Panther.
Dang, you never rode it. They had a
Never rode
bounty
it.
on you. I guess let's go ahead and go to the hard part, man. When I lost my mom, I got a call. It was almost 3 years ago on Christmas Eve, and I can remember it was 3:00 in the morning, and my brother called. He called my phone. I didn't answer, but he called my wife's phone, and he woke her up. And I can still remember, man. It gives me goosebumps and get emotional even thinking about it. But remember exactly what I was wearing. I mean, I can remember everything when he told me that she was gone, and I almost didn't. It's not that I didn't believe it whenever he called me, but I told my wife, we hung up. I said, I just talked to her. I just talked to her a few hours ago. I just talked to her. There's no way. It was just, I guess, the initial shock. What was that like for you, man? Was it pretty much the same thing, the shock and everything? I'm sure.
Yeah, definitely. So it was later on in the evening. It had to have been around 6 o'clock or so because the evening news was on. We had just had our youngest daughter. So my wife, we had put baby daughter down for bed. She had finally gone to bed. My phone rang and it was my dad. That wasn't anything out of the ordinary. So I answered and he asked me what I was doing. I said, nothing, we just got our daughter down. And he said, have you been watching the news? I said, no, I hadn't had a chance to turn it on yet. He said, well, don't. He said, your brother's gone. Well, in my mind, he was always going somewhere, always doing something.
Yeah.
So in my mind, he was just on another trip. He had left to go somewhere. And I said, okay. He said, no. He said, he's gone. I said, why? You already said that. What do you mean he's gone? He said he's dead. And I immediately just kind of zoned out. I remember walking into my gun room where all my safes are. And I've got a go bag and everything. And I started going through it and making sure everything was in there and was getting it ready. And he asked me, so what are you doing? I said, nothing. He said, no. He said, I can hear you fiddling with something. What are you doing? I said, well, don't worry about it. I said, it'll all work out. He said, no. He said, you cannot do anything. He said, I know exactly what you're doing. I know what you're thinking. He said, don't do it. He said, you've got two kids that you've got to worry about. You've got a brand new one laying in bed. He said, you can't take this on yourself. You can't do this. And he said, besides, he said, if you look out your window, he said, you're not going to be able to leave your house.
Oh, geez, man.
Yeah, I looked outside and, there were red and blues all around. At that point, I didn't care. Like there's not enough of them out there that are going to stop me. And so he pretty much begged me not to do anything, promised me or made me promise him that I wouldn't do anything. So I did, hung up the phone, and I just collapsed. Couldn't even hardly talk. I was crying like a baby. And my wife, she was freaking out because she didn't know what was going on. I just hung up the phone and I was laying on the floor in a fetal position. And finally, she was able to get it out of me. And so she immediately got on the phone and called some of my buddies, and they came over and kept me here for, a day or two. So yeah, that was definitely the worst day of my life.
Yeah. Okay.
Heavy stuff right there, brother, for sure. How long has it been now? How many years has it been?
It's been 12 years.
That's incredible. I know to you
Yeah.
it doesn't. Like with my mom, it doesn't. It seems like I was just FaceTiming her, showing her my newborn son. And it's been 3 years, man. So is it the same way now? Even 12 years later, is it just as you still have trouble with wanting to pick up the phone and call him and stuff? Or
All the time, all the time. Anytime something happens, something good or something bad, I still grab my phone and scroll through it and pull up his name, want to text him or call him, because that's what we did whenever something went on with us. We'd always
yeah,
bounce it off each other. And yeah, I still do that. Yeah, it does. It's still pretty fresh. I don't know if that ever goes away, but I guess we just got to keep going on.
that's right, man. Got to keep on keeping on.
So Jeff, how did you get through that?
First, I just kept myself busy. I wouldn't stop, wouldn't take the time to grieve, I guess. I immediately, after a couple days, I went up to where he was living at and was with the family for a while. And I just kind of kept going from there, always doing some kind of, appearance or interview or something. And I never would let myself stop until my wife pretty much called me out and, made me stop and, get some help, talk to somebody and figure it all out, work through it.
Yeah. One thing that I wanted to bring up, when we met in Colorado, you had mentioned to me that like Taya and him weren't even together when this whole thing went down.
Yeah, they were kind of on the outs at the time. Most people don't know that, they did not have the loving, caring, successful marriage like what she portrays. He was definitely looking for his out. So, but yeah, it's, can't judge a book by its cover, that's for sure.
I didn't know that. I don't think anybody really knows that. I guess they were on the outs.
Yeah. Well, I mean, because if anybody did know about it, that would tarnish her, her image.
It would. Speaking of that, I noticed which I mean, Tony, showed me and told me too. Tony did, but the foundation. So she's got the Chris Kyle Foundation, but you have a whole separate foundation from that, right? Correct.
Correct. Yes,
Okay,
sir.
and it's called the American Valor Foundation. I had to check my notes and make sure. The American Valor Foundation, right, is what it's called.
Right. Yes, sir. Yeah, me and my folks started that back in 14.
So not long after then. Do you
Right.
so do y'all really keep in contact with her? Do they
We haven't had contact with her or my niece or nephew in probably 10 years or more.
really?
Yeah, my parents and I both received letters from her lawyers, from her attorneys, stating that we could no longer have any direct contact with her or the kids without going through the lawyers first. So they gave us an address that we could send, Christmas cards, gifts, birthdays, stuff like that. And a few years later, we found out that, that was just an empty warehouse that, things probably weren't even going anywhere. It was probably getting trashed. So,
Man.
but yeah, we haven't had contact with any of them in years, so that's another thing that I get to see my family just get destroyed every day because, that's the only thing, those kids are the only thing left of Chris,
Yeah.
and my folks don't even get to see them or talk to them or anything.
How old are they now?
Oh, wow. My nephew, he's got to be 22, 23. He's in his early 20s. They're both adults. They could, if they wanted to, reach out on their own, and seek us out.
They may not know the whole story and everything.
Oh, I guarantee you they don't. No, they've been lied to their whole lives, by her, So I'm sure they're tainted, and
Yeah.
they think that we're horrible people.
Because
That's incredible.
out on her crap, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was we never did have just a great relationship with her. Just because, our personalities didn't mix. We could tell that she wasn't there for Chris. She wasn't in it for Chris. Um, you know, and I think a lot of things that she does now shows that.
Yeah. Yeah. It seems like she just kind of capitalized on all of it, right?
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry to bring all that up, dude. I didn't mean to be nosy and dig and all that. Yeah, that's
It's
that's
all part of our life.
I mean, that
That's,
like you said, dude, that's what's left of Chris. I mean, that's
that's not right. Well, I just really believe God's going to turn that around for you someday, Jeff. I really do believe the truth's going to come
yeah.
out and he's going to make a way. So we'll be praying about
I hope so.
Yeah.
That's, we hope that happens someday, but it's kind of, like you said, it's out of our hands.
Yep.
My parents wanted to, for a while, to try to take it to court and fight for grandparents' rights. I kind of talked them out of it because, I told them, I said, look, I said, these kids have been through hell, their young lives. And I said, if you take it to court, it's going to get extremely nasty, and those kids are going to be drugged right back through that dirt. And that's something that they don't deserve. They don't need. And looking back, I kind of wish I'd let them do it. But again, I didn't want the kids to have to go through anything else than what they were already going through.
Yeah, man. Yeah, dude, that's so jumping back now, you've been overseas and everything. So I know that you've seen a lot of stuff and done a lot of stuff now. I saw something that you had talked about PTS and all that. We had talked about, me and Tony talk about mindset a lot, and when people call it PTSD, when you label it a disorder, you're pretty much giving that power over yourself. I feel like, man. I feel like if you can speak things into existence 1,000%, and if you call it, well, yeah, I've got this disorder, it won't let me do this. And I'm not saying people don't suffer greatly. I know, I can only imagine. But when you give things power, man, that's so. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree with that. I've never liked the disorder part of it, because it's something that a bunch of us deal with, even those that have never been in the military. Everybody can have some sort of PTS. But like you said, once you throw that disorder on it, it just becomes a stigma, and it takes control of your life, and it becomes almost an excuse to a lot of people that they can just throw around. To me, it's not a disorder. It's not a disability. There are ways that we can cope with it. I went through a program that helped me deal with all my stuff, because even before Chris, I didn't deal with anything that I had gone through in the military. And then whenever Chris was killed, then it just compounded on top of that, until I finally went and sought treatment and got help. There's not a magic pill. There's not a woo-saw or anything that you can do to get rid of it. It's going to be a part of your life forever, but it's just how you deal with it. And to me, we're all warriors in some aspect, and that's still part of your fight. You have to continue to fight, and you got to push past it and continue being a warrior.
That's right, man.
Wow. So talk to us about the American Valor Foundation. What all do you guys do? I know it's part of Carry On Chris's legacy, helping veterans.
So we didn't have any intention on starting any kind of organization or foundation at first. And somebody approached us and wanted to do a benefit in 2014, wanted to kind of get back to our roots, how me and Chris were raised, and do a little rodeo event. And
That's
then
cool.
whatever organization that we deemed fit, that all the proceeds would be given to that organization. Chris and I both had gone through a hunting program that, gets veterans back out in the wilderness and gets you hunting and everything, gets you out in the wide open spaces, fresh air, everything like that, with guys and girls that have been through the same things that you have. So we picked that foundation to give the proceeds to that year. Well, then after that year, it became kind of a big deal, and they asked us, all right, what are we doing next year? So we sat down and talked about it, and we started the foundation, went through all the process to get the 501c3 up and going. Um, then, so we started the American Valor Foundation. That's the organization name. And then our fundraising aspect is the Chris Kyle Memorial Benefit that we hold every year. And we've had it in Oklahoma. We've had it all over Texas. This year will be the first year that we're having it in Waco. And what we do with that is all the money that we raise we have a golf tournament, we have a clay shoot, and then the benefit. Those are our three main fundraising aspects of the foundation. Donate that money to either first responders, veterans, their families, and that's to assist with anything. Now we've bought washers and dryers for individuals before that, maybe their house burned down or their washer and dryer quit, and they just needed something to kind of pick them up and get them back, back on their feet. We would do that. I had a veteran who was going through a VA program. It was a 9-week program in-house. He was the sole breadwinner of the family. So while he was in the program, he wasn't making any money. So his wife went and hawked her wedding ring to pay bills while he was gone. He told me this. I went and talked to him at that program, and he told me about this. And so we got the ring out of the pawn shop, got it back to her, and we paid their bills for, 3 or 4 months till they could get back on their feet and he could get done with the program and, get back to being who he was, we do things like that. We take guys on hunts. We sponsor individuals to go through mental health programs to assist with PTS. We give to other nonprofits that kind of align with our views. Wherever we can help, however we can assist, that's what we do. We started a scholarship program for children of veterans and first responders, whether they want to go to a state college or if they want to go to a community college or anything like that and learn a trade. We help them out with that.
That's really cool, man. That's what it's all about, man. You're not in it to have tax write-offs and, make money on the side. You're actually helping people. So I'm going to put the American Valor at the top of my link tree, everybody. It'll be the very first one. That way everybody can see it and go right to it. If you want to, throw some money, go ahead. That's y'all are doing really, really, really awesome things. Now, what do you do now in Waco? What's your career?
Yes, sir. Yeah. So I'm a police officer now.
Awesome.
So I get to run the crazy streets of Waco.
Man, yeah, Waco. I bet that's probably pretty interesting, isn't it, on a day-to-day basis?
It gets pretty western at times, yeah.
I bet it does, man. That's awesome. How long have you been a police officer?
I've only been with the department for 4 years now.
Okay.
Yeah. So
That's
I was
cool.
kind of the old man going through the academy. They called me Dad in the academy. So.
Did they?
Hey, Dad. So are you going to join the SWAT team then? Is that what you were telling me?
I'm actually on the SWAT team.
You're on the SWAT team. Okay.
Yep.
Doors down.
That's awesome.
I gotta do it while my body still lets me.
That's right. So get that rush in, yeah.
That's right, yeah.
We've seen happen so far.
That you can talk about.
Well, yeah. I mean, so really, we deal with a lot of gang members, a lot of gang shootings, at least twice a week. We're chasing those guys around the city all the time. But a lot of our issue right now, and I'm sure it's this way all over the country, is our mental health people.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, the system has failed everybody. It's just a revolving door, just like the VA and other agencies like that. They put a Band-Aid on it for a minute just to help them through the day, and that's it. They don't actually fix the problem or attempt to fix the problem. So we deal with a lot of that. Me and one of my beat partners actually went on a call. It was a suicidal veteran. I actually made phone contact with his roommate. The roommate told me that he was a former SF guy and was just a trained killer and all this, and he was terrified of him, had guns in the house, and had this crazy mean service dog, and had locked himself in his bedroom. So we get a bunch of people out there, and me and my partner walk up and make contact with the roommate outside. He takes us inside. We go in the house, and of course the door's shut to his bedroom. So we make entry into the bedroom, and immediately this freaking Cujo comes up, and so we shut the door right away. Didn't see the guy inside. Shut the door right away, and had the roommate come in and get the dog. He was able to secure the dog for a minute. Got in and cleared the room, and the guy had locked himself in his bathroom, and he laid in front of the door. Well, we ended up getting the door open, and we noticed as we went through the house and went into the room, he had all these trinkets, little like jewels and crystals and everything all over the room, all over the house. He had these weird like voodoo type dolls. And whenever I made initial contact with the guy in the bathroom, that was the most demonic voice that I have ever heard in my life.
Wow.
Yeah. And he kept telling me that this individual was not here, that I could only reach him through this being that had taken over his body. He said his name was Eshu. Well, we looked it up later, and Eshu is it's like an African warlord, demon, or whatever from way back when, black magic type stuff. And we just, so, of course I had to play along a little bit.
Yeah.
And refer to him as Eshu and talk to him and everything. And he started getting pretty agitated with us. We didn't know where it was going to go, how it was going to end up. There was a few officers that left the room pretty quick, and it was weird because as soon as he was holding one of these jewels in his hand, a crystal, and as soon as his body went limp and the crystal dropped from his hand, and then this guy woke up like he had just taken a nap, completely different voice, and he was like, "Hey, what are all these uniformed guys doing in my bedroom when I'm in my underwear?"
Dude.
And I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, we're gonna go to the hospital." So it was a strange situation.
Yeah.
I'd never dealt with anything like that. I believe in God, and I believe that there are demons, but I don't know if I talked to a demon or not. I mean, it was a weird situation.
Pulling it up, man. Look, this SU is a key figure in your Yoruba spiritual tradition. So right here, it's both order and chaos. He serves as the messenger. He acts as an intermediary between humans and the divine, ensuring that prayers and sacrifices reach the supreme God. Yeah, that was definitely, and he's also known as a trickster, the guardian of the crossroads. Yeah, that's definitely the demonic stuff. That's incredible, man. That gave
Yeah,
me good. I had to look it
a
up.
freaky situation.
That's man. Well, everybody made it out, so that's that.
Yeah, yeah. And it was pretty crazy too, because after the fact, a couple days later, I went and visited him in the hospital, and he was a completely different guy. He still had no recollection of what had happened that night. He was thanking us for what we did and got him into the hospital and everything.
Yeah.
I stayed in touch with him for a couple weeks after that, and he seemed to be doing all right. Gave him some resources on where to look, how to get help. So, I don't know where he's at now. I hadn't talked to him in a long time. That was probably 2 years ago or more.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a weird situation.
I just said that's crazy.
That's wild, dude. So you said you gave him some resources and stuff. That was another question that I was wanting to ask you about the PTS thing. So as far as people that are going through it and all that, as far as the resources, do y'all have stuff on the website where they have resources to reach out, or?
Yeah, we've got a few things. We only partner with other organizations that are in line with us,
Yeah.
that are in it for the right reasons. They're not out there to make a buck.
Yeah.
They don't have all these high paid CEOs or anything like that. So there are a few resources on there, people that have supported us and who we support as well.
Okay. Good deal.
So what kind of advice would you have, Jeff, for someone that's really going through it, maybe doesn't think that they have an issue? I think that was you at one point, right? You nothing's wrong with me. So what kind of advice would you have for someone in that situation?
I think we all, at one point, we're all in that position where we won't admit, or we won't, look in ourselves and, say that, yeah, we do need help. The biggest thing for me is just talking to somebody. You got to find that one person that you can rely on, that you trust. It doesn't have to be a coworker, it doesn't have to be somebody in your family, but somebody that you can talk to that's not going to judge you, or even it doesn't even have to be somebody that understands. Just somebody that you can get it all out to and talk with, that'll just listen to you and let you vent. That's something that even in our department, we deal with. We have a ton of veterans that are police officers, just because that's the simplest transition, and it makes a lot of sense for a lot of veterans to transfer over into law enforcement. Because we deal with a lot of the same issues. One thing I say about law enforcement, that in the military, we could leave our wars, we could go home and get away from it per se, but law enforcement you can't, because you live in your battlefield pretty much, and you see it 24/7. So you really can't escape it, because I go to town with my family and I see people that I've arrested and people that I've fought and things like that, and I got to kind of hide my face and, move my family a little bit, because I don't know what they're going to do. But it's, we have a good group at our department within our peer support team, that we can talk to amongst ourselves. Our department is huge on getting help to those that need help, and it doesn't look bad on anybody. None the wiser. You take vacation. You're on paid vacation, and nobody knows why you've left or where you're at. You're off getting help, and nobody knows about it except the ones that assisted that process. And that's something that I really admire about our department, is the confidentiality.
Yeah.
And how everybody can rely on each other to not judge each other and not to spread rumors and things like that. And I can go to any of my teammates at any time, pull them to the side, or even my supervisors, pull them to the side and tell them what issues I've got and things like that. And it's only between me and them, and it gets worked out. And that's just, even if it's just for a 10-minute chat, just sitting down, just BSing. We call it car spooning, when we pull up next to each other and talk to each other. I can call my supervisor or any of my beat partners and car spoon with them, and we can get stuff off of our chest. And we'll have officers drive across the city to other parts of the city to do that, with their person, somebody that they rely on, and get it all worked out. So my advice is just to talk about it, because for so long we've been told to suck it up, move on, don't say anything, and a lot of us have been worried about doing that because we didn't want to be taken out of the game, right? So as a warrior, you want to keep out there and be with your teammates and fight the good fight. And, we were always kind of taught that, if you say anything, then you're going to be sidelined, put on the bench, and none of us want that. And that's probably the worst thing you can do to anybody that has any kind of issues, is sideline them. You got to keep them moving with a purpose. You got to give them something to do. you know, talking about it and getting it off your chest, that's one of the biggest first steps that any of us could ever do.
Yeah, awesome, man. Yeah, you're definitely right about that, talking about it, because I used to be real bad about that, trying to hold everything in, you know what I mean? And the fact that y'all got a support system like that at work, I mean, that is huge, huge, because that just doesn't, and then y'all already it would then, so my granddad and my uncle were both, they're both in law enforcement and stuff too. And dealing with the hate that y'all deal with now, I guess maybe it's not quite as bad in your area. I'm not really sure, but a lot of just the hate that cops get, it's pretty bad at times. So you're having to deal with that on top of other usual life stuff. I know that's got to be pretty stressful, man. I mean, it's got to be.
Yeah, fortunately here in Waco in Central Texas, um, we still have the respect of the public. You know,
Good.
I have, we were even the bad guys that we take to jail. If you got to go to jail, you got to go to jail. It is what it is. It's
Yeah.
nothing personal. They didn't do anything to me. They did something to somebody else, so I don't take it personal.
Yeah.
They trash talk me, and once I get them in the car and we start moving down the road, then usually it's a good conversation. We just chat about things, and I respect them, they respect me. So we have a good working relationship with the community.
Yeah.
Even the gangbangers out there, they get it, they understand. We don't necessarily understand their way of thinking, but it's job
Yeah.
security, that's for sure.
It's job security. Yeah. You ain't got to worry about that at all. That's wild, man.
Benefit April 26th.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just to bring that up. Yeah. Tell us about that, the date and all that stuff.
So April 26th, here in Waco, it'll be at a location called the Base. This will be the first year that we've had it here in Waco. We've had other events here, and it's always been really good. We've got a big support system here in Waco that supports what we do. And we assist a lot of organizations and individuals here in Central Texas. We're really hoping that it's going to be a good one. We're currently still selling tickets and sponsorships. And so if anybody wants to jump on there and do any of that, that'd be great. We're kind of doing things a little different this year. We would normally have, like a special guest speaker or something like that. But this year we're kind of doing testimonials. We've got a family who is a Waco detective. He was a Air Force veteran, and his wife was as well. They have a uh, a daughter who is my oldest daughter's age. They were in school together, and she was diagnosed with cancer back in I think they were maybe fifth grade, something like that.
Man.
Yeah, so it was kind of a big deal, and on a cop salary and things like that. So we heard about it. I don't remember who referred us to them. So my wife and I actually, this was before I was a police officer, so we didn't know the family at all. Made contact with them, and we went over to their house one night and had dinner with them and explained to them that we were going to assist with anything that they needed,
Man.
because they were looking at doing like a second mortgage on their home and things like that to pay medical bills. So we stepped in and we assisted with that, you know. So that was a big deal for us and for them. So
Yeah.
the family is going to be there talking, kind of giving their testimonial. We've started the last couple years, we've been doing retreats in Colorado through another program called Way Forward, and it's a religious-based retreat. They have couples retreats, they have men's retreats, father-son retreats, things like that, women's retreats. And so we put out a message for individuals to sign up for that, to go on that program. We had one of our board members, her and her husband went on it and were just beside themselves at the end of it, and said, how much it helped them as a couple, as a married couple. So my wife and I went on it last year, and it was amazing. Being out there in Colorado, we hiked up to about 14,000 feet.
Oh man.
Yeah, so I mean, it's you have to endure the pain, and everything that you carry is on your back. So you're actually packing everything out, all your clothes for the week, and everything, all your food, everything. And you're camping out, setting up tents, digging holes to go to the bathroom in. So,
Yeah.
that's kind of a big deal for a lot of women. They're not comfortable doing that. And so kind of get you out of your comfort zone. There's no phones, no watches allowed, anything like that. So you're just out there just relying on your guide and focused on, you and your spouse, or you as an individual in your team, if you go on a men's retreat or women's retreat. And then you kind of have little get-togethers every night and share your struggles as a couple and with other couples that you may have never met before in your life. My wife and I, the trip we went on, we had never met the people that we were on there with before. And it was crazy to hear their stories and how much they were very similar to ours and what they've been through and what they did to work through it. So one of those couples is going to be there and kind of talking about that and, how we assisted them to go to that program.
Yeah.
So, that's for us, that's kind of a big deal for people to hear, that their money's going in the right place.
Exactly.
Yes.
We're not just feeding off of it. We're not living in extravagant homes. We're not taking our board members on extravagant trips or anything like that. We have 0 paid employees. My family and I take nothing from the foundation. Everything goes right back out. So, that's important for us to put that out to everybody that, pays the money to be there. So, we want everybody to see what it's all about.
See the results. That's awesome, man. I've always wondered about those retreats and stuff too. Like I've had 2 different friends that went on the couples retreat, and they said the same thing. You said it was, I forgot where exactly they went, but it was pretty awesome. Either it's going to work or it's not, because you get rid of your phone for a week. It's either going to do really good or really bad.
Yep.
That's awesome, man. Y'all got it going on, man. I'm going to be sure to share the heck out of this and really push out y'all's foundation, because y'all are doing a lot of really awesome. I didn't know y'all did all this stuff, man. It's like the definition of mom and pop's family style business. That's what we grew up calling them in Georgia. The little family on. That's what this is, man. This is the definition of it. So yeah, we're going to try to push it out and just try to help as many people as we can, man. That's what it's all about,
Appreciate that. Yeah. We
Sure.
could definitely use all the help we can get. Like you said, we're just a small organization that's trying to do a lot of things, and we can't do it without the support of everybody else.
That's
So,
right.
And we don't do advertisements on TV or anything like that. You don't get blankets for every $19 a month that you give to us. So we try to keep it small and, keep it real.
Yeah, that's right. Keep it real. That's the main thing. Real, genuine. Exactly, man. Yeah, that's awesome, dude.
Well, Sig Sauer is excited to get behind you guys.
That is definitely awesome news.
Yeah. No, as I told him all that stuff. And
You said SIG is getting behind them?
yeah. So my husband is one of the higher ups at Sig Sauer. And when I explained to him the situation, and told him about all the great things that American Valor does, he was like, "Oh, we're getting on that for sure." So I know that for the other organization they were donating to, it was product and funds. So that's going to be going to American Valor now. So I'm excited.
That is huge.
Yeah.
That is huge. We're extremely appreciative of that.
And I really think once more companies watch this, they're going to get on board 1,000,000%.
I'm going to push this out more than I've ever pushed out any video, Mr. Jeff. I assure you, man, because I'm all about, my wife's a veteran. So, I've got an uncle, he's a veteran as well. And then my other uncle and granddad were in law enforcement. So everything you do, your family does, I fully support 1,000%. we're going to get as many people sent your way as possible, man. Like straight up, it's going to be good, man. I'm excited.
Well, I appreciate that. That truly means a lot to us.
Yes, sir.
We
Yes, sir.
do. I know you got a crazy busy life and a wild work schedule, so thank you so much for taking the time to sit down.
Yeah, man. Thank you. Yes, thank you so much.
Well, I appreciate y'all having me on here, inviting me to be here.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir. So it was a pleasure, and we'll definitely have you. We'll do like an update video, say 8 weeks from now. We can do an update and just kind of touch base and see what's going on, man. See if you have like any new announcements and all that stuff. And so I'm sure y'all have a lot of things going, man, with this, with Sig jumping in and then everybody else. I'm going to try to push your way too. I'm going to push y'all's way, and Tony's going to push y'all's way. We're going to make some noise with it, man. And that's what me and her talked about, is just wanting to. We're going to change the world, is what we kept saying. Like I've always felt I was going to do something really big in my life and help a lot of people. And by me and her starting this podcast and talking to people like you, this opens the door up for us for her to do that, just to send people your way. And then who knows how many people it'll help or how many lives it'll save. Just, I don't know. It's networking is so important, man. Like
Yes,
what you know, I fully
That's
believe
right.
that.
I do too. And aligning yourselves with the right people, with people that have the same values that you do. That's
Yes.
where it's
Yeah.
at. So, y'all are doing good things, and I definitely appreciate it big time.
Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
Go enjoy your day off. I know it's your only day off.
Yeah, man. Keep fighting the good fight out there, man. It was a
Yes,
pleasure
sir.
to meet you, dude.
Likewise. Connie, good seeing you again.
Good seeing you, Jeff.
Good meeting you, buddy.
Yes, sir, man. And take it easy, man.
Yep, y'all too. Y'all take care.
You too.
All right. Later.
See y'all.